Hello there, I'm Scotty. You're not. I've been itching to talk about some Big Wolf on Campus on the channel for quite some time. Haven't really, done much. I did the, scooting this fast so I can sip a little bit. I did the, quite a few years ago, I did a video where I just talked about the series in a whole, and I thought, I really wanted to kind of sit down. I was listening to some old TV themes, and Sonic X, and Yu-Gi-Oh! 5Ds, and then this one, and I was like, you know what? I kind of want to sit down and watch some of these. But if I watch them, I'm going to want to talk about them. So here we are. I'm going to talk about the first 10 so far I have thumbnails for. So we'll start with those. I'm going to do the whole series. There's 65 episodes, 3 seasons, 22 seasons each, 22 episodes each, 2 of which are clip shows, which I will talk about. Because at least the first clip show in season 2 has a storyline. The second one is like an award show at the end of season 3. But, this is the pilot episode, the first episode, which I used to call An American Werewolf in Pleasantville. And then I realized it was a Canadian TV show. So it would be Canadian Werewolf. But the actor who plays Tommy Dawkins, the Wolfman, is American. So it is An American Werewolf Pleasantville, but it's just called Pilot. So there's that. And the main story of this is one of the few, I think there's like 3 or 4 episodes where there is no actual villain per se. There's an antagonistic characters, like the werewolf is here, has the town hunting for the werewolf. I don't think there's an actual villain. This one isn't actually having a villain. It is Tommy dealing with his werewolf powers. And essentially, Tommy and his friends are now seniors, which they will be for 3 years. Because the show ran for 3 seasons. I don't know how long they planned for this to last, but he's a senior here. He doesn't graduate till season 3. Maybe they had an idea that there would be only 3 seasons, but he's a senior for 3 seasons. It also doesn't make sense because they mention here. So, he's a senior, and we're introduced to characters. There's his family, his dad, the mayor, his mom, the local news broadcaster, his brother, who sits in a lazy boy recliner chair, and watches TV all the time. Now, I sit and watch TV all the time, but I have a job. I don't live with my parents like he does. Maybe fat, he's bigger than I am. But, I have a YouTube channel, I do other stuff. I leave the house. More importantly, he doesn't ever leave. I think he's always sitting in that chair. And yes, growing up, there was a comparison. That's gonna be me. But I may be fat, but I'm not as big as he is. And I have a job, I do things. I leave my apartment. So, comparison kind of stops at a certain point. And then we get to school and we learn of Stacy Hansen, Tommy's crush. And they go on finally ask her out on a date, because it's always been confusing to me, because he's like, she'll never go out with me because she's been dating seniors since she was in the 6th grade. Okay, first of all, that's not legal, because they would be 17, 18 years old, and in the 6th grade you're like 12. It's a little sus, even in Canada. But yeah, but he's a senior now, and he doesn't actually put that together. And then she's like, hey Tommy. And then we meet TNT, or Tim and Travis Eckert, who, and this made me laugh. I was putting up that Power Rangers poster behind me, and I dropped it because I started laughing. I always forget this, but it's funny. They've been in high school 6 years, and are still only juniors, which makes me laugh. But yeah, that's how it is. And which is confusing, because when the graduating happens, it's supposed to be one long-ass senior year, right? Supposedly, all 3 seasons are the same senior year, because there's no mention of anything of them both been held back because of grades or something or nothing. So they graduated at the end of the season series with them, and yet they're only juniors here. But all the actors are over 20 anyway. I think was it Rochelle Lefevre is the youngest. She plays Stacy, and then you have Merton, who has been have the locker next to Tommy since the 2nd grade, I think they said. And so Tommy was bitten the first night that we see him, and he starts to do these a bit weird things, like his nails are growing and his ears get pointy. He's got sharp, you know, canine teeth, and Merton starts to figure out, hey, I think he's a werewolf. When he tries to talk to Tommy about it, he of course pushes it away. Werewolf, you gotta watch what you say to people, that sort of thing. So he goes on his date with Stacy, but it's the night of a full moon, so he starts to change. The makeup that we get here is not the makeup we would get for the season, for the series. And I thought that originally this episode did not have an opening theme song. Unless they added it in the reruns, because this is probably... I'm watching these on YouTube, and this was probably a rerun that they put up and they added the theme song. But I don't remember the original pilot having the theme song, which is a banging theme song, by the way. It was called Just a Phase, sung by Danny Smith, who plays Merton, which I didn't realize that till years later that he sang it, and I was like... And then his band, the Summer... No, that's a different one. The Summer Drive. The Summer Drive, I think it's called. His band has a song in one of the American Pie movies. I think it's Band Camp. He has a song in that. Add it up, all the things I've had enough. Da, 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 da. Something like that. But, yeah, that got me the first time I heard that. But, yeah, so when Tommy wolfs out, as they end up calling it, he has different kind of makeup where it kind of covers most of his head. His hair's a little longer and stuff. Whereas the traditional makeup is his hair gets a little more spiky, which is weird because he basically has hair like me. He has more hair than me. It's more, By the time he gets to season 3, his hair is a bit longer, which there's a continuity issue, but they kind of break the fourth wall with that when we get to that season 3. But and the episodes do get weirder. I remember liking this. So when I first came across this show, I watched Fox Kids, I kept seeing ads for this on Fox Family as it was at the time before it became the ABC Family, now Freeform. And so I finally decided to watch an episode, and I was hooked. It was like season 1 episode. And I remembered, because, I don't know if you remember this, but on ABC, Saturday mornings in the mid-90s, I think it was, they had a show called Bone Chillers, which was this group of high schoolers, one of which was Linda Cardellini, that lived at this weird high school and weird stuff happened. And it reminded me, the tone of it kind of reminded me of it. After season 1, that tone it gets lighter after season 1, It's kind of darker, and everyone looks a little bit different. It's a little bit more gothic-y. What's his name? Bruno? I think his name is Bruno. He is the school security guard in school. He's the only one. I think it's Bruno. Hugo. It's Hugo. The school security guard. He's the only one. He's only in this season, actually, that I realized before when I was in my 20s when I started rewatching these on YouTube again. He's only in season 1. He doesn't show up any far past this, but he's a school security guard, and it's kind of a weirdo. I like the actor. But he's I don't know why they didn't just have him be the principal, because they never had like a principal character, I don't think. And then he's usually one that sends people to like detention and stuff, but so back on track with the episode. After wolfing out, he goes to Merton's. Merton freaks out because he has an overactive imagination and didn't actually truly believe, what was going on. But there it is. But then Merton's sister was coming back down, so Tommy had to leave. Tries to sneak in, and that's when he has a clap off, clap on, clapper fight with Dean, who is of course still sitting in the room watching TV. And then they're like, okay, there's not a full moon for another month, so we should be fine. Only the wolf thing doesn't really work that way in this. Also, Merton mentions that the only good werewolves have been in Teen Wolf and Teen Wolf 2, but they're comedies. Larry Talbot in the Wolfman, he wasn't inherently evil. He was a good man who was conflicted because he had this werewolf power, so he wasn't completely evil. So that's not 100% true, Merton. He mentions Professor Flugelhoff, who will have an episode later on this season called Flugelhoff, but he mentions it at the University of Nuremberg. I don't remember what it was. But, yeah, Heidelberg. University of Heidelberg. Flugelhoff. We'll see him a little later on this season. But he mentions him here, and then later he mentions him again when he says that the werewolf can be turned by anger, or you find out lust when he gets overly horny for Stacy, and fear maybe, and Spreckelbraten, which could be a sausage. Stay away from Oktoberfest, but yeah, and so because TNT were picking on Merton, Tommy sort of had his back because they're becoming friends, and so he's like, hey, come to the factory with me tonight, which is like a hangout club spot that the teenagers go to in this town. He's like, I'll introduce you to Stacy. And so he's out there dancing with Stacy, and Merton is bombing with Stacy's friends, talking about, I think it's D&D he's talking about. And then TNT come and take him away, which angers Tommy. He starts to morph, and we get Tommy not here, because he's starting to get a little grabby. And then he's forced to wolf out and take on TNT, which is the first sighting of the werewolf by anyone else in the town. And, yeah, he's forced to run away because of his transformation. Now, I think his transformations are smoother, but here's the thing. When he transforms here, he still has the makeup that we see, that we seen earlier in the episode. But when he transforms, you see the wolf face that's in the intro. So it's like, was that graphic put in for the reruns? Because it's kind of weird. He doesn't morph into that makeup. They had to change the makeup because Brandon Quinn was I don't know what's reaction, or if they just wanted to make it easier to apply the makeup. But yeah, and then we end with at the lair. We get more talk of Flugelhoff and talk about what will make him wolf out. So it's not over yet. It's not over. It's not going to be this every month because he's a different werewolf. He's a good werewolf, and he says that he and Merton are friends. In front of Becky, which they both go, really? And that's basically it. There's no big villain in this. The first villain's in the next episode. But overall, it's a decent start to the series, and I can't wait to watch more. So what are your thoughts on the pilot for Beowulf on Campus? Comment below. Make sure to like, share, and subscribe. Thank you for watching. I'm Scotty, and I'll see you in the next one.